Up now, Noel Burdett turns the ingredients from last week's episode on how to make a terrarium into a terrarium.
Okay, so now we're ready to put the terrarium together. So we've got our elements, let's try and construct something really interesting. So of course we take off the lid, which is the first thing to do, and we add in the gravel that I mentioned earlier. The gravel goes down the bottom layer of the bowl. Now this is here to aid in drainage, and this is where the moisture will actually sit. So we need to have a layer where the moisture can fall through but not actually keep the potty mix or the sphagnum moss continuously wet, because we want to try and avoid that. But with the water can come bad bacteria, so we need to look at alleviating this problem. And this is where we add the charcoal. So good horticultural charcoal can be found at any good retail nursery. We put a layer of that next into our bowl. Sometimes if you find that the charcoal is a little bit too chunky, you can break it up quite easily and put it in. Now this is not to be confused with aquarium charcoal. That's a little bit different, a lot more refined, and it serves another purpose. Now our next level comes sphagnum moss, but one little thing to remember is we take our spray bottle with moisture and we wet. Just add a little bit of moisture there down onto the charcoal to begin with, and then we add the sphagnum moss. Now it's not essential that you put the sphagnum moss in at this stage. It is an individual thing. I have always done them this way, and I like to sort of ensure that the sphagnum moss layer is present, because the roots of the plants will go through the potty mix and into that sphagnum moss layer, and it's a nice additive. It'll end up breaking down over a period of years, and believe me, it's not uncommon to have terrariums that will last for over 40 years in your home. Next we add the potty mix. Now you will need a certain layer of potty mix in there, so press it down quite firmly. Bear in mind that the plants that you do actually add into this will also have potty mix quite happily around their roots. Right, so for this particular terrarium here, I've chosen a couple of small ferns. You may want to look at removing some of the root ball just to lessen the height, but I like to sort of spread them out. Don't throw away that mix that they're in. It's very, very useful. And you pop it into that way there, into the bowl, and press it down firmly. And as you go through this, be sure to add some potty mix around the root systems of these plants, because they will need something to grow into. You might stop and think, oh yes, but that's not very deep for potty mix or for the roots to grow into, but you'll be quite surprised at how well these plants will adapt. The next one I'll pop in is this small but beautiful little maidenhair fern, and it's nicely moist. That's another thing. Before you put your plants in, ensure that they've all had a good drink a couple of hours before, so they're holding a good amount of moisture in there. Now the root systems of these are very fragile, but they will spray out quite easily. Like I said, I've got some African violet mix here. You can buy it in small bags. You don't need to buy large quantities. Again, just put a little bit around the base there. You don't want to cover the entire lot, because you want to keep a little bit of space free for the next plant that you put in. And that next plant that I'll be putting in is this one here, which is the Salaginella. It's a creeping ground cover fern that will grow in shady conditions. Look, that's a little tip to remember as well. The plants that you do choose, try and make sure that they are plants that are capable of growing in relatively low light conditions. The last thing you want to avoid is a plant that wants such high light requirements that it will actually die from lack of light. So you want to put a plant in there, or a selection of plants in there that will take low light conditions. Now I'm just making a small furrow in there to attach this in here. In fact, I will remove some of the potting mix and root system because these have a very, very shallow root system in here. And just push that down. Now the beauty with Sologenella is that it grows quite easily and it roots from the nodes from each of the stems. It's a very, very easy plant to grow. It's one of the fastest to grow actually for a lot of people, and it makes a lovely moss-like effect in the front of that there. Now at this stage you can actually choose to put gravel or small pebbles around those plants if you wanted to, or you could actually go one step further and bring in a little bit more of the sphagnum moss at this stage. Now this lot that I'm putting in is a little bit on the drier side, and that's intentional because it'll act a little bit like a mulch but also give a very natural forest-like appearance to the surface if you don't like the look of the soil itself. Of course, there are lots of little things that you can add into these to make miniature fairy gardens. You can put little ornaments in there as well and have a great deal of fun with all of this. Now the last stage is to go in there and damp everything down. So you give everything a good spray down in the base. Like I said, these plants have actually been watered prior, so they don't need a lot of water, but I'm just adding a little bit of extra moisture to this container so that the end result is it will actually get nice and full of moisture and a lovely environment will start to occur. Now, here is the tricky part. This is where we need to place the lid on. And voila, we have a beautiful enclosed terrarium full of interest where the plants can grow for many, many years, and you have a very cheap, inexpensive gift that you can give for Mother's Day, for Easter, for birthdays, or for Christmas. Get the kids involved, and I'm sure that the love of terrariums will grow in your household and you won't stick to just one.